Alright, so yeah, welcome to part 6 of the agency accession course. In this video we'll talk about selecting your service and pricing. So let's get into it. Today's agenda, picking a service, why you should not hire a media buyer, beginner tips, and also how to price your service. Subscribe and follow and share the course. All the links will be in the description. Join the Facebook group for support and community. That will also be linked down below. It's the best way for me to help you out and also connect with others on the same path as you. And also, yeah, share the course. This course only really grows when people share it. So if you know someone who might find use in this, please share it. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, important, if you want to succeed, watch the entire video. Don't skip, don't fast forward. Alright, so that is that. Now let's get into this. So yeah, as I mentioned, this will be around selecting your service. And by the way, this is a follow-up video to the Irresistible Offer Creation Guide. So if you haven't watched that one, go back and do that now. That video is very important, and it should be part 5. So the video just before this one, because I'm sure you're quite aware already, having a really good offer is very important. So yeah, that's that. Also, if you want to read this for yourself, this document, it will be linked down below. Alright, so you now have picked your niche and you have created your offer. And it's now time that you find a service that has the best odds to deliver on your promise to the target audience and your niche. And if you are a beginner and don't have a proven process to get your clients killer results, do not hire a media buyer. And if you ask me, if you do this, it's really just an excuse to avoid having to actually learn to deliver to your clients. And if you have tried to find a media buyer as a beginner, I'm sure you've realized that it's very hard to find any good ones, and the good ones won't accept working with a complete beginner agency for $600 per month. And yeah, just take it from me. This was basically the path I did in the beginning. It didn't work out. Just suck it up, do the work, and also like really learn how to actually deliver yourself. And then if in the future, when you really have a proven process that you know yourself, you can then of course outsource that and also learn someone to actually do it for you. But until then, do it yourself, all right? And even if you were to find a good media buyer that actually can deliver for a reasonable price, it's still not a good way to go, because you are putting 100% of your ability to perform for your clients in someone else's arms. And guess what? Your media buyer probably doesn't care about your agency as much as you do. So this ties back to what I mentioned before. And so yeah, like let's imagine you hire a media buyer, you don't have a single clue about how to do things and how to really deliver results for clients. Then if you hire a media buyer, it might turn out great, which it probably won't, but let's just say it does. Then if that media buyer leaves you and finds something else, don't want to work with you anymore, you are quite screwed. So yeah, that's another point. And I've heard so many cases where beginner agencies get completely screwed because they manage to get a couple of clients and have no clue how to deliver. So they hire a media buyer, and it normally works for a little while, but what do you think happens when the media buyer gets another job opportunity that pays them a lot more money than you do? If/when the media buyer leaves you, you won't have a single clue on how to keep the clients you worked so hard to acquire. So again, take it from me, personal experience, don't go down this path, all right? Yeah, so my tip for beginners. So now, of course, you might wonder, but what should I do if I'm a complete beginner? Well, since you are a complete beginner, there's really one option I can recommend for you. Learn yourself. And I know it might sound absolutely crazy. Who could have thought you actually need to learn a skill to be able to make money online? And I'm sorry to break it to you, but building a profitable agency isn't easy. It can go relatively fast, but it will never be easy. So if you've been brainwashed by these SMMA influencers online who flex their cars, watches and villas in Dubai, I won't mention any names, let's say a media buyer will solve all your service delivery problems, you have 2 options right now. You can 1, continue to cope and click off this video to go and mentally masturbate over YouTube videos from these gurus that will never contribute to your progress, or just accept the fact that you will need to learn to do things yourself in the beginning before you can hire someone to work for you. Alright? If you're still here, you have my respect. Let's continue. So, selecting your service. There are a ton of different online services you can offer, such as Meta ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, TikTok ads, etc. But as I mentioned before, you want to pick the one that has the best odds of giving your client the best results. And if you don't know what the best service to offer is in your niche, I would really recommend that finding your top competitor in your niche and just try to model your service based on theirs. Since if they are the best in the market, they must be doing something right service-wise. And yeah, there's really no shame in doing this as a beginner. We all need to start somewhere. And the way to sort of do this, and let's say you're in a niche where Facebook ads is very popular, you can use Meta's ad library, which is a great tool to find your competitors' Meta ads. There are other similar tools out there if you want to find your competitor ads on other platforms. And yeah, I'm just sure you are creative enough to find a way to find this information. And agencies are usually quite open about their methods on sales calls, and do what you want with that info. And when you've decided on the service, there's also a ton of free service delivery training out there for you to learn more, which is sort of the main reason for this course in the first place, because I'm very confident you can actually learn a ton of service delivery for free. So yeah, and also one other takeaway. So when sort of selecting your service, it's very, very important to really understand your niche and the sort of buying behaviors of the prospect that will buy from your clients. So as an example, let's say roofing. Roofing is a good example. So for some reason, roofing is a popular niche, and a lot of people are doing Facebook ads in roofing. And I'm not saying this won't work. Of course, it can work. It can work really, really well. But let's say if we just think about someone who actually needs like a roof repair or even a roof replacement or something in that style. Since when you actually, like when that happens, like let's say your roof breaks and you need a new one, you need that relatively fast. And what do you normally do when you need something fast? You usually go to Google and search roofers near me, roofer in my city, something like that. So yeah, in my opinion, Google Ads will probably be the best bet for roofing in this case, because the buying behavior is usually that when you need it right now, and you go and actively search for it. You don't really, usually at least, go to Facebook and start scrolling. Again, it of course it can work, but I'm just saying the most optimal solution is probably Google Ads in this case. So again, a lot of these goes back to you really understanding your niche. So yeah, just one takeaway from there. All right, pricing structure. So most agencies want to charge monthly retainers, which is totally fine. But if you are a complete beginner, you need to realize this probably won't work for you. And because it's very hard to convince a prospect to pay you a retainer plus ad spend, we don't have any way to prove you can actually deliver. However, it is a lot easier if you have some form of pay per lead, appointment, show model, where you only get paid based on what you deliver to your client. And the price per lead, appointment, or show will of course vary a lot depending on what niche you're in. You can include this as something to figure out in your market research. So I won't give you any specific numbers, but because again, I'm very sure you will understand this yourself by either having sales calls or just doing your market research and knowing what makes sense to charge for an appointment, a lead, or a show, or whatever. All right, so yeah, my favorite pricing structure for beginners. And as mentioned in the introduction video, this course, one of the main objectives in the beginning is to get you some testimonials and case studies, so it will be easier for you to close clients in the future. And it might be tempting to decide to offer your services for free in exchange for testimonials, but this is not something I would recommend, simply because a client that hasn't shown any financial commitment at all won't really take you that seriously, and it will probably be hard for you to get all the things you need from your client to be able to bring them any results. So my recommendation is to have an agreement where you get paid per lead or appointment, show, or even commission, but you also have some form of setup fee to get started. So just to add to that, it's very important to really get some financial commitment from a client, because of course it's very easy to sell someone on, I'll do this completely for free for you. However, when it actually comes down to you getting, because let's say you're doing Facebook ads for someone, there are a lot of things you actually need from the client to do for you to get them on board and everything. They need to go into the business manager, add you. You usually will probably run into some other issues. And if a person hasn't invested anything at all to really get these services, it's a lot higher risk. They just don't care about it, or as soon as it gets a bit of a hassle, they just don't want to do this anymore. So yeah, and usually let's say you're a complete beginner and just want some testimonials, just even saying you're working on a complete pay and results basis, only commission based or only pay per appointment in the future, no setup fee or anything, that is usually a lot easier to convince someone to actually agree to, because then you at least state or indicate on you actually know what you do. So yeah, but back to the setup fee. So if you decide to use a setup fee, that doesn't need to be very big, like maybe only 1K or even lower than that. But that setup fee means that your client now has shown financial commitment to this partnership and will now probably take things more seriously and would be willing to cooperate to get things started as quick as possible. And yeah, the nice thing about this method is that it's quite easy to sell, and if you are able to bring the client good results quickly, you can negotiate with them to start paying you monthly retainer in the future. Because most of the time, business owners aren't necessarily against paying retainers. However, they are if they aren't able to see the value you can actually bring them. So as soon as you've been able to prove you can actually deliver, it's usually quite easy to introduce a monthly retainer, but of course it still needs to make sense for them money-wise, of course. And this method can be used by every type of agency that is struggling to sign clients. If you're more experienced and know you can deliver good results, it's a really, really good way to get clients on retainers. Because you introduce the setup fee and like commission basis or whatever, and then after a while you can then introduce the monthly retainer once they've actually seen that you can actually deliver for them. And if you're a beginner, it's still relatively easy to sell this, and worst case scenario, the client hasn't invested a ton of money and you have at least gotten some experience. And another reason why I recommend this for beginners especially is because, as mentioned before, it's easy to sell, and the best way to learn service delivery is to just get more experience. And yeah, you can only get that by getting more clients. All right, so yeah, that's the most of this, but right now I just want to also show you a tool which you can use to price your monthly retainers. So again, I mentioned it before, but you can find this document in the description. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you found this spreadsheet right here. So let me just open that. And so yeah, as I said, here's a really good tool you can use to calculate a reasonable price for your monthly retainer. Okay, so if you just go in here, it's quite simple actually. And so yeah, first of all, just make sure you only edit the green cells. And when you go into here, you won't be able to edit this. So just go to File, make a copy, and make it your own. So yeah, this is just an example, but let's say you start with ad spend. This is the client ad spend, $1,000. I think that's reasonable to start. You might want more, but it's a reasonable ad spend to start with at least. And then you, of course, need to make some guessing, but then you can also include this in your market research to really know what the average is. But let's say the average estimated revenue per lead is $3,000 in this case. And yeah, you fill out this average cost per lead. And when doing this, I recommend to be very, very conservative, just to make sure you can actually do these numbers. So yeah, average cost per lead, $50 in this case. Lead to appointment rate, so how many actual leads goes into appointments, if that is something you're doing. Let's say 60%, and the show up rate 70%. Then when you fill out all that, this will sort of just automatically calculate how many estimated appointments, potential revenue increase, and then also sort of calculate what some good pricing could be. So as you can see here, and there's some different ROIs and multipliers here. So usually like the gold, and what I think is the best way to charge is 10x the ROI. So yeah, the potential revenue increase is potential in this case 25,200, and yeah, the gold pricing would then be 2,420. Yeah, you like in the beginning, of course, it's easier to sell something if you charge lower. But yeah, around this would probably make sense. And again, like be very, very conservative with the numbers and actually be sure you can deliver on these stats right here, and also get the estimated revenue per lead right. But then when you got that right, yeah, I think this is a great tool to use. Just make sure and at least have an understanding of what sort of ranges you can actually charge. Because like charging high, like as soon as you can sort of justify the retainer or price or whatever with the amount of value you can actually bring the client, there's usually not a problem charging high. It's just that you actually need to justify it with the value. And in this case, if you're bringing potential revenue to your client around 25 grand, they will happily pay you 2,400 for that. So yeah, just a little quick resource you can use if you want to sort of calculate how you should price your monthly retainers. But yeah, that's basically it for this episode. It was quite short. Yeah, have a really good day.